Keep hours, what have you. This is going to be the first of our, well, we have two general sessions that we're going to be doing. This first one is going to be on foundation. Our second one is going to be on membership, public image, and diversity, equity, inclusion, all tied in together, all very important, as is the foundation. First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking their time over the next day or two. And we appreciate the fact that you are willing to serve in your club positions, which are very important positions. And a club cannot operate, they can't be successful without the great work of your leadership and you leading your members to accomplish what you're needing to get done. That's what this is all part of. This is the third leg of our training. We started basically with our pets training. That was pre-pets and pets, and that was leading or training your president-elects to lead your clubs the coming year. Now, these are the club chairs, which are a very important part of the success of the club. All right, our first session is going to be led by he's a past district governor. He's our current district foundation chair, Mr. Gary Dills, 2016-17. Gary, I'm going to give it a moment.
And I'll take it. Thank you, Sean. First of all, thank you for being here. How many incoming club presidents do we have here? Please just give me an idea who we're talking to here. How about foundation chairs, club foundation chairs, assistant governors? Okay, great. Like he said, I'm the foundation chair for the district, the Rotary Foundation chair. I'd also like to welcome our Zoom participants. We've got about 10 of those, I think. And so I'm glad you're here.
They're coming on.
Go to the next slide, Connie, if you would.
I'm gonna have to find that slide.
She's going to find that slide. How many secretaries are here? How about treasurers, as long as we're doing this?
Yep. Okay, a couple that'll be in the room.
Membership,
That's gonna be in here. Youth. How many people are gonna go to the youth?
youth,
1, 2, 3. Okay, because we've got another room that'll be set for the youth, and we want to make sure we have enough seats in there.
and this will apply to all of you, actually, as a Rotarian and as a leader in your club. Okay, today I'm going to talk a little bit about
I'm getting
background.
there.
Once
Getting there.
my slide shows up. Little background, then I'm going to go talk about fundraising. There's a lot of aspects to the foundation. We'll talk about grants, we'll talk about scholars, and then we'll kind of take your questions. And if you have questions, jot them down if you would. So at the end, we can do all those at one time. I really hope you will ask questions because I don't know what you don't know. How we coming there, young lady?
I'm getting there.
Well, I'll just continue on like I know what I'm talking about. Arch Klump kind of said it best, I think, in 1929, when he gave us kind of the goal of Rotary. We should not live to ourselves alone, but for the joy in doing good for others. I kind of think that's the way most of us look at the world. At least I hope that's the case. And we appreciate, there you go, we appreciate him saying that. Next slide, please. The foundation was established in 1917 with a very small amount of money. I've heard everything from $5 to $500. It was a small amount. Their mission was to ensure Rotarians can advance world peace and understanding. I mean, that's kind of the way these guys looked at it in 1917. We take your gifts of money and we transform those into service projects, both locally and around the world. Everybody says this, I love it. We do good in the world. That is one of the purposes of Rotary. We focus our service in 7 focus areas, which I'm sure you're tired of hearing people talk to you about. But nonetheless, we're going to do that. Peace and conflict resolution, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, material and child health, basic education and literacy, economic and community development, and the environment. When you do these grants, and this will come up a little bit later, I hope, people kind of say, okay, where does this fit into one of those focus areas? you could fit almost anything that we do to help people in one of those focus areas. Just got to think about it, maybe be a little creative. We have John Davis and John DeWitt, they're creative. Rotary Foundation is our charity. Sometimes we may forget that, but it is one of the major charities in the world. It is a global network of Rotarians around the world. The money is raised and managed by Rotarians. We consistently have the highest ranking by Charity Navigator. In other words, this is a first class charity. Next slide. Foundation today, we started, like I said, with a small amount of money. We've grown to $1.2 billion in net assets. That's not chump change, people.
Wow.
In 21-22, which is the database we're working off of, we raised $434 million. That's pretty impressive. 1.2 million people, 434 million. Frankly, a lot of those funds come from the United States, from North America. A lot of those monies are raised through our annual fund. Yeah, Alpo in here is very familiar with this. We raised 15 million for Ukraine, which ran out amazingly quick. And we were on the cusp of getting some of that, but they ran out of money first. $50 million for Polio Plus, as Trudy clearly knows. We funded 467 district grants. We'll talk about ours there in just a moment. $31 million, again, not chump change. 55 disaster response grants. This is a relatively new process of responding to response grants. We kind of think of that as a Red Cross's function, but we do some of this as well, like in Turkey. And we funded over 2,066 global grants, which is a big deal. Where do we get the money to do this? It comes from us. Our annual fund giving is the most common. When you make your contribution, 99% of the chance of the time, that is to the annual fund share. And that's what we want you to do, because we share that money back to the district, some of that money back to the district. You can do this through cash, which happens, particularly in polio, pledge. A lot of people do their major donor recognition through a pledge, a gift of stock. We had someone this past big $1 million fundraiser do just that, a significant amount of money. They didn't have to pay tax on the capital gains on that, and Rotary got the benefit of the funds. IRA rollover, that happens as well. Those of us of a certain age, you have to take your RMD each year and take some of that money, contribute to Rotary, and you don't pay tax on it. Well, contact your tax advisor, but I don't pay tax on it. A charitable gift annuity, which I've done myself, a real easy process. Talk to the major gifts officer or us, we can help you. A trust, less common, but happens. Life insurance, less common, but happens. Bequest, very common. A lot of people in all of our clubs make a request, that $1,000, $10,000, whatever, or do a beneficiary designate for your own foundation, your own trust, your own life insurance. Our expectations for CART, can't even talk, and the Rotary Foundation, pretty straightforward. $145 per annual fund to the annual fund per capita. Generally, the district is around $180, $190 per capita. Some clubs a lot higher, some clubs lower. As your club president, as your foundation chair, the big thing that I would like for you to remember on this is when they ask you to set your goals, which are probably in the process now or done, make those goals high, reachable, realistic, but don't lowball it, because that's what we've done for the last 3 years. We've lowballed our goals. Consequently, we're sitting at a pretty good record if you're looking at our percentage completion. But if you look at it from, say, 16, 17, you're nowhere in the ballpark. So really pay attention to your goals. Just because you set your goal at $200 per capita doesn't mean you're degraded if you don't meet it. It just means you're asking for people to stretch it a little bit. And that's important, I think. Increase your number of Paul Air stalls. There's all kinds of ways to do that. I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. I would really like to see Rotary district participation increased. As of last week, we, District 7670, had the highest rate of Rotary direct participants in Zone 33.
Yay.
That's good. We're top, yeah. We're in the top 5, I would imagine, in the world. I haven't looked in a long time, but we're doing well. I think Billy Black, myself, and Biddle and Isaac for making that happen, because we talked about this in 14-15 and decided we're going to make that a priority, and we have. And I appreciate Billy for that.
Yep, yep.
And I'll talk about that in just a moment, but 10 is not enough, I'm just saying. I would encourage you to have 100% every Rotarian every year. It really ticks me off that we can't get above 88% every Rotarian every year participation. $25 is not a lot to ask, that's the minimum, to make E-ready. So as you go into your clubs and you're leading your clubs, encourage everyone to give 145. But if they don't want to do that, a minimum of 25. Get that above 90%, please. I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years on and off, and 88% I think is the best I've seen. Okay, slide, please.
They're
Yes.
having trouble.
Yeah.
Make the point that if you contribute to polio plus, that is not an E-rate contribution. So if you give $25 for the year and that's all you give to polio, you are not an ERUI.
Yeah, John is making the point that polio doesn't count. We're talking annual fund here. Okay,
Give me a second.
okay, while she's doing that, I'll just talk.
Mhm.
Club presidents, foundation chairs particularly, set your goals, as I said, realistically, but high. And those are probably already been done. You can go in and alter them if they're a little low, you think. I haven't looked at them. That's your prerogative. How do you raise more money? New members. When you get a new member, how many clubs do orientation of some kind? We do, Franklin, because I do it. Part of that orientation ought to be a discussion of the Rotary Foundation. And I always give the Rotary Direct form to the new person and say, okay, when you get your member number, we're going to talk, and then follow up with them. And like Billy said, $10 a month is not a lot to ask. That's the minimum. That's $120 a year. Most people spend that much on coffee in a week. So engage your new members. You can hold a fundraiser for an area of focus. Let's say you're a literacy person or an environmental person, water or something like that. Hold an event at your county fair, at some chamber event, and raise money for the foundation, focusing on that event. Your newspapers will carry it, your local radio station will carry it, on and on. So try that. We did one for polio, I don't know, many years ago when I was club president at our county fair. We didn't raise but $500, but the awareness for polio was well worth our efforts because these kids have no idea that polio still exists.
She could see it now.
Lead by example. Make your contribution early and make sure that you make a point of it. Stand up in front of your club and say, hey, I just made my contribution to the annual fund. I encourage you to do the same thing. Recognize club members for their contributions. And I'll talk about that just a little bit in a few minutes on how to do that. Automate, did we go to the slide?
We're not
You're
advancing
stuck.
here, but they're seeing it on Zoom.
Well, I'll just keep talking. Okay. Ways to give to the foundation. Rotary Direct, we talked about that. One of the easiest things, how many people in here know how to get on My Rotary, can sign in? Who doesn't? You brave enough to raise your hand? Somebody help this young man.
And praise.
Man, he's brave. But somebody help him.
Growing on the
The
road.
easiest way to do this, you can sign up for Rotary Direct, you can do all kinds of things. Is go into my Rotary, and it's pretty obvious, there's a big red donate button up there. Click
Well, I
out.
was used to them looking like the stairs at our other house,
After you sign in,
Yes.
you have to have your credentials,
but it look really nice.
hit the red button that says donate, and you can go in and select all kinds of
Now that
options.
everything's clean, the red comes out in the red.
Select annual fund share, or if you're making a contribution to polio, make sure you check the right box or it'll get screwed up. Because we had a guy do $1,000, but he sent it to the endowment fund, not to the endowment fund. So, didn't get credit for all that.
Here, you remember. He got all this stuff.
Yeah,
And so he kind of gave it he gave it to Rotary, and he just hit the give button. He didn't know how long he had to just hit the give button, $5,000 check to the foundation, but not the right button.
yeah. And like she said, for those who didn't hear that, we had a person in our community donate $5,000, didn't know how to really do that, so they just sent it to the foundation. The club, the district got no credit for that. Okay, you can also just give a check to your foundation chair. A lot of clubs do that. A lot of clubs collect money through their invoicing process. That's fine. That's what you want to do. And you can yourself make the club a donation directly to the foundation through that My Rotary, or you can just print out the form, fill out the form, and send it in. Did we get anywhere? No, we're still stuck. Every Rotarian every year is this next slide that you're looking at. It shows a bunch of good-looking kids, which we help, and we can help them by everybody participating. Again, that $25 doesn't seem too much to ask. How do we recognize some of our people? Paul Harris Society, again, one of those initiatives that kind of took off 13, 14, and has continued since then. It's $1,000 contribution per year, a pledge to do $1,000 per year contribution. That's $84 a month, approximately. If you do Rotary Direct, have $84 a month brought out of your checking account or to your credit card, and you get credit for all that. You get all kinds of points for it, and you build toward your major donor status, and you, more importantly, help people around the world. You can donate to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or to an approved global grant to this Paul Harris Society. Like I said, you can enroll through Rotary Direct. There's a form in the brochure, which if you Google Paul Harris Society, you'll see the brochure. If you can't find any of that, drop me an email. I can find you all this stuff and get it to you directly. And that's true with all of this. If you have a question or you can't find something, let me know, or let John Davis know, or let Ken Chill know. We will find it for you and send it to you, oddly. Paul Harris Society, our guy is Bill Biddle. Bill, are you in here somewhere?
Here.
Here. Bill is our Paul Harris Society guy. He'll help you with that, with the process, and he'll also make sure you get your Paul Harris Society chevron or your pin. And if worst comes to worst, you can call the Rotary or email the Rotary Support Center, and they will help you. But do us first. We'll be very responsive. Paul Harris Fellow, is that the next slide?
It is.
Is anybody out there seeing any slides? No. Well, the remote guys are. Paul Harris Society. That's $1,000 contribution to the foundation over the life of a Rotarian. It's not a lot of money in the scheme of things. For each $1,000, you get a Paul Harris Fellow pin. Has anybody got one on? I saw somebody that had one. There you go. Looks like that, and Lee's got one on her collar there. For each increment of $1,000, you get a Paul Harris +1, all the way to +9. And once you're at $10,000, then you qualify as a major donor. Unless some of that's points, it's still got to be $10,000 in real money to be a major donor. Points do count toward a Paul Harris Fellow. How many people know what recognition points are? How many people have used recognition points? This is great because a lot of clubs do not have a clue. And that's not so much their fault, that's my fault for not being communicative enough with these clubs. Should be a goal of every Rotarian to be a Paul Harris Fellow. The next slide should talk about recognition points. I wanted to include this because a lot of clubs have not really paid attention to this in the past. I was talking to Waynesville a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they wanted to specifically hear about this because they didn't know how it worked. And again, that's my fault. 1 point for every dollar contributed to the Rotary Foundation. It's pretty simple. You give $1,000, it's 1,000 points. You give $100, it's 100 points. When you give to the endowment, like we talked about a little bit earlier, those are not eligible for points. Just so you know. You donate
Thank you.
your points to others. Did we get caught up?
Thank you. Just like-
You can donate your points to others in increments of 100. Let's say I want to make Jacob a Paul Harris Fellow +3. I can go up to Jacob and I'm not going to give him 1,000 points because, you know, hey, Jacob, I tell you what, man, I'll give you 500 points. You put $500 into the annual fund, you'll become a Paul Harris Fellow. He might, that's a deal. He says, gimme. When I became a Rotarian in Franklin, my sponsor said exactly that to me. He said, hey, you kick in $500, I'll give you 500 of my points, make your Paul Harris Fellow. Wham, bam, thank you, man. There we were. And we're off and running. Use the points wisely. Their intent is to help raise money. So match those points to people. You got a new member coming in, new member person. Hey, tell them about Paul Harris Fellow. Put in $100, we'll give you 100 points, or 200 points. Put in $500, we'll give you 500 points. Whatever they're comfortable doing, help them along the way toward a Paul Harris Fellow. Let's say I had this question the other day and really hadn't talked about it in a long time. Let's say I croak, which I will eventually. Nancy Lee does not get, actually, I don't know, bad example. Let's say your average Rotarian Paul Harris Fellow +5 and you die and you've got 5,000 points. Those points die with you unless you're a major donor. And then your spouse can transfer those points. So what I would encourage you to do is you get points, say you got a 2,000 points or so, use those points to either further your own Paul Harris status or to help a new member along their way. Use those. Do not let those expire. We just had a fellow guy about 3 or 4 months ago, had like 10,000 points. And those go off in the ether. The club probably could have used those. You cannot, no, the club couldn't use them, but somebody in that club can. You cannot transfer points to a club or to the district. It has to be to an individual. So remember those things. These slides, I'm sure Connie's going to post these on the website. If you ever have a question about that, go to that. Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna ask, when I look at my report, it says that my club has points. So if a club
Yes.
doesn't have points,
No, you can't transfer points to a club, but a club can get points through participating in a Rotary district, global grant, or a district grant by putting money into a grant. Use that club can use those points. The district has points the same way. You can use those points to same thing, help new members, all kinds of ways, really.
but if
Maybe-
a member who has 10,000 points, they can't transfer them to the club.
They cannot to the club, but they can to individuals. Just sit down with them, give them 10 pieces of, or 15 pieces of paper and say, transfer these to these people. Those club points, though, are valuable. Several years ago, and I don't remember when this was, we did a contest to say, okay, whoever in the club raises the most money for the foundation or for our raffle or whatever it was, we will give you 1,000 points. And I don't know whether it helped or not, but we had a good turnout for that fundraising event. Any other questions about this before I go on? If you want to know how many points your club has, there's a report called the Club Recognition Report, and that's where you go to see those. Yes, Bill?
You can also choose spouse. I transferred 1,000 points to my dad on Veterans Day. And we made a really big deal about it. We brought all the veterans in and we told what culture itself did, where the money went, it's, you know, really made a significant issue. And he was dead 6 months later, but what an honor it was to him.
Yeah.
I was so excited, and every one of my grandchildren is called our fellow. Again, their district governor came and talked about the responsibility of service and told them, they were fairly young, he said, you need to serve.
Yeah.
You have a heart for service and, you know, put the medal on them and the whole 9 yards, so make a really big deal and make sure that people in your club.
Yeah.
And,
If you, as she said, in case you didn't hear it, you can give these points to someone else, a non-Rotarian.
Anybody.
I've given them to my daughter, I believe. I think I did. And we've given them to guest speakers. Ron.
Your daughter's a Paul society member, she doesn't need your Paul.
My daughter is a long-haired society member. It does not need our attention. And she's on the screen laughing probably. That's. Use the points. All right, moving right along. Don't give me 45 minutes. I got about 2-hour presentation here. So, polio. People think polio, a lot of people think polio doesn't exist in the world. It does. We've been fighting this dog for a long time. It affects children primarily. Once you get polio, you got polio. You can't do a thing about it. These pictures kind of demonstrate what happens. There's nothing much worse than meeting someone with polio. When I was a kid, one of my neighbors lived about, I don't know, half a mile from me, had polio. He was a teenager in an iron lung. This is in the 50s, of course. That kid died when I was in high school, I think, maybe a freshman in high school, from polio. They couldn't cure it, of course. And the iron lung just couldn't keep up with it. Be sure you go into the House of Friendship. See one of these, see some of the examples of the iron lung, the various devices with it, and look at the Polio Plus Society information, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. And Trudy's done an outstanding job with this. We appreciate it. Go by there, talk to her about this. Go Rotary, go to the next one, please. Rotary has been working on polio since 1979, when we were trying to work on an outbreak in the Philippines. We spent God knows how much money. We partnered with the United Nations, CDC, the Gates Foundation, on and on. The big thing today is for every dollar you give to polio, the Gates Foundation gives $2. So you take $1 and turn it into $3. That's significant, up to $150 million. So our goal each year is to raise $50 million so we can get use of that 150. I've talked to several people, and it all depends on who you talk to, on how long you think it's going to take to rid the world of polio. Right now, we have 2 cases of active polio in the world, unless it's changed in the last week. Mostly, they're all in Afghanistan. But Pakistan is still an active country because they have not gone 3 years without any cases. John Jern, whose father was a polio victim and survivor, told me about a year ago that he expected 5 more years of raising money to combat polio and eliminate it from the world, because we still got 12 million kids right now that have not had the vaccine. Of course, people continue to have children, so that number is going to increase. So you got to keep up the process of inoculating those 12 million kids, plus the ones that follow on. So it is not a dead animal. You have made a difference, and you will continue to make a difference with your contributions to polio. A couple of years ago, Ms. Trudy over here brought Polio Plus Society to our district. This is a great thing. It's $100 a year commitment to the Polio Plus Fund. She has a form to fill out. I can get it to you, she can get it to you. Any of my team can get it to you. You make that commitment, donate $100, and then you get some gifts, a hat, a pair of socks, a t-shirt, one of those three. Take advantage of it. Again, go in there to the House of Friendship, check out our display. Club reports. Now you like that for a transition. Wasn't much of a transition. Club reports. Presidents and foundation chairs need to know where these are. Go to my Rotary, sign in, go to my Rotary, go down to club reports and take a look at those. All of them are important. One, I think it's probably gives you more information than any of the others. As you go to the next slide, is your club fundraising analysis. It's kind of an instant snapshot of where you are in your giving. And gives you an idea of where you are. Then you can drill down with these other reports. You can see which members have contributed this year, which ones have not. Where you are on meeting E-rate, where you are not on meeting E-rate, and who hasn't done it. It'll take a few minutes. When I was club president, I did this once a month with my foundation chair just to check on things. And then we would encourage those who had not given to give. Okay, what happens to this money once we get it? The annual fund share, that money that we're giving, when you check annual fund share, goes into a big pot. Rotary International takes 5% off the top for fundraising and administration. This is an important thing. In the last 5 years, we have added our professional fundraising team, really made more to do with these guys across the world. They've made a difference. We could not have done that $1.23 million dinner fundraiser without the major gifts officer. We just could not have done that. His salary is paid by Rotary International. And these guys are professional. So you're not paying them $20,000 a year. You're having to pay them significant money. They're fundraisers. They know how to do this. So it's well worth their money. So what happens to the other 47.5%? As the slide says, you're going to get 47.5% back to the district designated fund and 47.5% to the World Fund. In reality, we have access to both those funds in a little different ways. The district designated funds directed by the district, by the foundation chair and the district governor. We fund our district grants, we fund global grants, and well, that's basically what we do with them. The World Fund supports worldwide foundation activities. And a lot of that money will come, some of that money will come back to match the monies on our global grants. So we will get some of that. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. Those monies are used where the trustees think they're needed, which kind of makes sense. We're a worldwide organization. Go to the next one. The monies that we get go into those areas, like I said, grants. You got global grants, you got district grants, and you got scholars. A global grant. What is a global grant? This is something that costs more than $30,000. It's a big grant. I'm not going to read the slide to you. Basically, the important things on this thing, they respond to community needs and they're sustainable projects, measurable and sustainable projects. You get three sources of funds for these grants: the clubs, DDF, and the World Fund. People get confused about the formula. It's pretty simple. Cash from the club, try to remember this, plus 1.8 times district designated fund equals the amount of money that you have for your project. Pretty simple thing, really. But people get confused. I get calls all the time saying, hey, I got $5,000. How much can I get for my project? Well, depends on how much DDF will give you, I guess. So anyway, pretty simple. Time is flexible. It's multi-year. There's no deadlines. There are reporting deadlines, but there's no deadlines on the completion of the project. We have one that's been ongoing for 8-9 years down in Kenya, and maybe it'll get finished. 3 types of global grants: humanitarian, which you would expect; vocational training teams, which we have done quite a bit, mostly in the medical area. send people into areas to help set up or implement an operation that's ongoing. Had one that did heart, we had some that did eyes, cataracts in Jamaica, and there's a whole list of these things. And then our scholarship programs, which I'll talk about a little bit more here in detail. How do you know, where do you find a global grant? Well, a lot of these come from people who have contacts in the various countries. John Baumrucker is a perfect example of this. He has great contacts down in South America. And so he can help fund more global grants in that area. We used to do friendship exchanges and pay for them. We don't pay for them anymore, but you can still do one. That's a great way to learn people in those areas as well. International conferences. When you go to an international conference, don't talk to just your people you know. Go out and talk to these people in Central America, in South America, and Africa. See what their needs are. Go to one of these global, to these project, what do you call it, fairs, project fairs. I went to one down in Nicaragua several years ago. There were districts from all over the Central America and parts of South America with their projects. Jill Heflin and I came back. I think we had like 40 projects that were reasonable for us to consider. We ended up doing one of those, but it was well worth our time. And oh, by the way, you can fund that trip if you're conniving about it using a district grant. Okay, I guess that's it. You can also just search on the web. Rotary's got a pretty good examples there. District global projects. Yeah, we have a bunch of them. Last I counted, we had 24 active global grants. And I got to say this, I don't know how long, for the first time, we have obligated all of our district designated funds this year. I don't ever remember that happening again. And how did that happen? Because John Davis, John DeWitt, Judy Chapman, and Rick Mullen decided they were going to make it happen. We had a little meeting about, I don't know, a year or so ago and said, okay, we're going to use these monies. It's stupid for us to have $180,000 laying around every year. These guys went out and made it happen. So if you see one of them, thank them for that. I'm so proud of that. These are some of the examples of our global projects. I'm not going to read them to you, but the significant thing is they're all over the world. Now, I'm partial to Central American projects because most Rotarians in our district can go to these areas cheaply and follow up on them. If you're going to Africa, it's a little more expensive, or anywhere else really, but Central America, northern parts of South America, very reasonable travel. Take advantage of these. District grants. Right now we have 44 district grants. Will they all execute? What's the amount of money? It's like $83,000 in district grants, which is pretty good. 44. We'll have some of those that won't execute, which is aggravating a little bit. Because last year we had $38,000 of $92,000 that did not execute for various reasons. A lot of it was supply chain, so it wasn't anybody's fault. Some were, they were just lazy in getting started. So if you've got a district grant, finish it this year. For the new people coming in, start working on a district grant for, well, they're due by the 27th, your application is.
May.
May. I'll talk about that in a minute. It's not quite May. District grant application deadline, 27 May. I'm going to read the slide to you. We fund all kinds of projects, as you saw in that previous slide. Humanitarian projects, scholarships, travel as part of developing a project. Paul Garner and his team are to go into Central America before the 5th of May. I'm not sure they're going to make it because they can't get their schedules to align, but that would be funded by a district grant. And if that doesn't, then if that doesn't happen, I told him a couple of days ago, apply for next year and work it then. This is all managed by the district. We're here to help you. There are rules and we comply with the rules. You must have entered your goals, which I think most of you guys have done. You have at least one club must have gone to grant management seminar, which we had a great turnout. That's no problem. You gotta have your dues paid and your international dues paid. Generally, that's not a problem. Closed all your prior district grants. Sometimes that's a problem. So close your grant out, do your reports. You can apply for more than one grant, but no club can get more than $2,000. So if you got like two $1,000 projects, 3, 4, $500 projects, you can do that. Last year, I saw, I don't know exactly what brain aneurysm I had, but I said, you know what? We ought to be able to put more money into district grants. Let's say Michael wants to do a project that costs $10,000, but it won't cost $30,000. Let's give clubs an opportunity to do that. So we said, okay, we'll do one district grant up to $15,000. That's viable. This past year, we had 3 applications. One got pulled. We had 2. We didn't have enough money to do 15,000, but they're 13,500 roughly a piece. Hopefully they're going to execute. And that's a great use of our funds. It didn't detract from anybody else because we made sure the smaller ones were funded first, and then we use those other monies to do that. Take advantage of that. A couple of repeated points, if I may. I learned in the Air Force that if you say it 3 times, people will either ignore you or they'll remember it. So let's try it for remember it. Final reports for your last Rotary year projects have got to be approved and approved so you can be considered for a new grant. If you're going to change your grant, district grant, that's okay. Talk to John Davis, talk to John DeWitt, so we can make those changes. If it's like we had a guy this week ask, well, I'm not going to spend, he asked for $2,000. I'm only going to spend $1,500. What do I need to do? Nothing. Report that you turn in your receipt showing the $1,500. We'll reimburse $1,500, not $2,000. I mean, kind of straightforward. It's got to be completed 1st of May of 2024. Now we're talking about this coming year of 2024. Enter the goals. Keep good records. You will not get your reimbursement if you don't have a record of your expenditures, a blank check, not a blank check, a canceled check. Or you could do a blank check and just put my name on it. Okay, we can make that work. And the invoices. Prove that you did the work that you wanted to do. Include pictures of Rotarians doing something.
Not a check.
Action pictures are not a check. But one of the points of all this is Rotarians have to be involved in the process. So put a shirt on a monkey and have your Rotarians involved in the project. That's the point of our service, isn't it? Take pictures, like she said. Submit your final report within 20 days, but not later than the 15th of May. And that's usually not a problem, although we have a panic session starting next week. But that's okay. Scholars. And I know I'm probably running along, but I'm hurrying. 2 types of scholars. There's global scholars, global grant scholars, and peace scholars. Global grant scholars, I'm not going to read it to you again, but this application process is open year round. You go to any international university. It takes 3, 4, 5 weeks to get a response, although we just had one done in about 4 days, very recently, in fact, today. There's an annual and final report. Peace Fellows, that's funded entirely by Rotary International. Very competitive process, about 150 candidates approved each year. Asheville has been really active in making these happen. And they just had one approved this year. I can never remember the young lady's name. Grace. Outstanding young lady that competed well and received that fellowship. Thanks to you guys, because that doesn't happen if you don't start the process. No reports. Peace Fellow. 7 universities, I think it is. Global scholars. I got to give Rick Mullen and his team all the credit for this. We have, I think it's, well, you can count the number there. I mean, there's 8, I believe it is. Global scholars approved this year. Actually, I think we still have 1 pending. This is important. We have numerous universities in our region, South Carolina, North Georgia, Western North Carolina. I don't, we counted, Rick and I counted them up at the beginning of all this process, but it's a bunch. There are kids out there deserving of this. Rotarians know these people, tell Rick and his team, and they'll make it happen. And they have so far. And the last one we just had approved this morning, what's that young lady's name?
Ready.
Ready, the last one down in England. It's about a $57,000 scholarship. That's a big deal. Again, that's an actual effort.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
Cool.
Next slide. There's a lot of nuances to grants. We're not going to cover them in this, even in the grant management seminar, but we can tell you enough so you know who to ask. John Davis, John DeWitt, Judy Chapman, myself, Ken Schul. We will answer your questions, or we'll find somebody who knows the answer to your questions. So never be shy. Ask us. We're here to help you. Okay. In conclusion, almost.
If I take these
Part-
papers away.
Part of being a Rotarian, and I honest to God believe this, is making a contribution to the foundation. I've been criticized for saying this, but if you're not contributing to the foundation, somehow I don't think you're committed to Rotary. I may be wrong about that, but I think it's a key part of being a Rotarian. The monies that we give to annual fair, annual fund share, 47.5% comes back to the district designated fund, 47.5% goes to the World Fund. That's important. We use those monies. Polio is still a challenge, and we have an active polio program and helping. You have help in all of these areas. We've got fundraisers, we've got grant people. Just contact me or John Davis or Ken Schultz, and we will find somebody to help you, or well, for that matter. Final thoughts. Almost final thoughts, not quite. Paul Harris Society. Take advantage of this. If you're financially able to do this, take advantage of it. Polio Plus Society. I encourage you to do this because we still need to raise that $50 million per year. This is an easy way to do that and painless. Every Rotarian, every year, every club in this district ought to be able to meet that goal. $25 a head doesn't seem like a heck of a lot to me. Use Rotary Direct. You make all those other things happen if you use Rotary Direct. Paul Harris Fellow. Encourage your club members, particularly your new members, to become a Paul Harris Fellow. Help them with the points process. It will make their life easier. It will get them into the process of giving. And Jacob is not going to get 500 points from me, regardless of what he thinks. Major donors, major donors. We have a lot of people in this district. They're very close to that $10,000 threshold. Points don't count in that $10,000 threshold. That's the first level. In fact, we have lots of major donors in this district. The next level is $25,000 in real monies. Club presidents, club foundation chairs, look at these reports, see who's close, encourage them to do that. If they're an age where they're taking an RMD, encourage them to finish their major donor contribution by using some of those monies because they'll get a tax break on top of that. 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club. Again, this is fairly easy to do unless you got 400 members, and then it's a little more difficult. But take a look at your rosters. See who's close to being a Paul Harris Fellow but isn't. Help them with points. Encourage them to do this. If you got new members, that's a particularly good time to use your points. 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club. District grants, apply and execute. That's the message there. Apply for this money and execute. We are very liberal in approving these as long as they meet the terms and conditions. So please do that. Next slide. I'm almost finished. Mark your calendars. Our foundation dinner is on the 7th of October. at 5:30 in Morganton Community Center. If you haven't been there, it's a great facility, holds about 150 to 200 people. We'd like to see it max capacity. I don't know what the price is going to be right now, still negotiating, but it's going to be around $45 a head, which I think will be fine. The whole point is to recognize our club members who have contributed to the foundation. Our speaker is Rotary Foundation Director,
No.
Rotary International Director, Patrick Eakes, who's a great guy and good speaker. He's our keynote. And then we got Margaret Lebec, who's a past Peace Scholar, coming to tell about her experience as a Peace Scholar, which I think will be very interesting. I appreciate your time. Please go forward, do good in the world. The foundation is how we do that. That's our tool for doing good in the world. Questions, comments, snide remarks? How am I done? So get out, huh? Okay.
Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause to past District Governor Gary Dills.
That was pretty close.
And the upcoming year, we appreciate the great work that he does. Quick announcement, I was just
Thank
being
you.
told you, there are some green t-shirts that are free that you can pick up that are in the House of Friendship next door. It's at the far table. You don't have to swap shop with somebody there in order to get a t-shirt. This announcement from Jim Cruikshank, our finance chair. You can pick up a green t-shirt and yeah. So there's nothing that you have to trade for that. So anyway, all good stuff. All right, so what we're going to do at this point is we're going to take ourselves a break, and then we're going to start again at 2 o'clock, which is a few minutes from now. And our next session will feature Patrick Mangano, our district membership chair, Julie West, our district public image chair, and Michael Anzalata, our diversity, equity, inclusion chair. We're going to start promptly at 2 o'clock, so please be back in here at 2 o'clock for our next general session.
Thank you. Hope that was okay.
Thank you, everyone.